maybe redefining stories to be able to cater to new needs or a new future in a way, reshifting. So I think today architecture is something which defines tomorrow today, and we have to remember that, because we cannot build what is today, then we fail, because already tomorrow it's not relevant. And these kind of approaches, trying to understand what we can do for the future, is a very important part of our job. Architecture extends far beyond just bricks and mortar and surface. It's indeed something which shapes society and the community and the culture of the future, and what we all will live in the time to come. So I think we can go to the next slide. So as mentioned in the introduction, my early beginning was in a caravan, and the idea behind that was to try to learn in a way as the old apprentices would learn from masters, like back in the earliest days of architecture, where you would have you would work with a master to learn how they have their professional skills, and you move on to the next one and learn from that one. In this case, we were more focused on trying to understand what are people's needs, because we think that maybe architecture have gone too far from removing themselves from understanding the society we work with and for. So instead of learning from a master architect, we would learn from the real masters, which are those who lives in the society and who have needs which we need to cater to. And also by traveling around to new places, we would learn how they are different. The subtle differences from place to place is important. They have their all cultural layers, they have their history, they have specific interests, or they have specific geographical or topographical situations or qualities, or maybe opposites, that they have some challenges, but still these things fosters and they change and they shape those societies. So, but in a way it's pointing back to how architects used to work, and I think it's kind of one of the building blocks of our profession, understanding, learning from others. And that is also multidisciplinary, trying to understand from others, many layers of knowledge, many layers of cultural understanding, and in a way, as architects, we embody all of those and try to, and we then can express them. So kind of a master of all is, I guess, our ambition in a way, to transform that into something which lives on. So I think we can go to the next slide. You can push the play button on this slide. I think the idea, just to have this slide, well, we created this TV show, as mentioned, and the idea was to try to communicate towards the public what architecture can be, and using the tools of multimedia and popular culture to express what we do and how we can make a difference, and also distributing knowledge to the general public, because without knowledge it's very difficult for them to understand and appreciate what architecture might do. If the knowledge is introduced to them on a level where they can understand and appreciate, it's a much better dialogue between people on the same level. And I think that we as in architects in the past, we would build these grand cathedrals, and they would, or maybe chapels or temples in the case of India, and I guess they were built to have a kind of a strive against or towards something greater than ourselves. And maybe tomorrow those are not necessarily built physical objects, but other kind of manifestations, and maybe some of the job of kind of lifting and giving a purpose is not necessarily built, but it can find other ways, other pipelines to build that good future. I think we can go to the next slide. Yes, thank you. So this is this project in Utøya, the main building built around the site of the massacre and containing the affected building with the bullet holes and all the traces from that day. I think this was not entirely a task of rebuilding, but again, trying to understand what are the necessary components in building a new future for that island and those survivors and the parents of those which were lost. In that case, it was not just defining an architectural structure, but understanding what could give them hope, how could you foster a new future, and how could this dark moment in history create a platform for something which could honor those which were lost by creating a greater symbol of democracy and dialogue. So it was trying to understand where were also their emotional lines, what was important for them to be able to take that step into the future. And that's the reason why we ended up with this building, was to cater for creating a meeting place where they could meet and they could discuss and they could talk, but they could also go there and approach it almost like a temple, where they could approach the site of their where their children lost their lives. So it's this balance between the dark and the light, and between living and dying, which is kind of deeper than the building itself. And I guess that's like after great conflicts or wars, we as humans in the past, we rebuilt our cities and we redefined our future with that. And this is just a little project, but in a way it caters to some of the same historical past of how we would approach something in the, as a part of the process, building something which would be a threshold or a portal into something new. So that's again trying to understand that architecture is not just sitting waiting for a client or someone specifically defining a brief, but searching quite wide and talking to many and learning from a wide range of inputs, and then translating that into something which is built matter, but it's also a new story. It's also a new cultural layer and something which has its own kind of persona. I think we can go to the next slide. So yeah, we as architects we work quite widely. One of the projects we're involved with is in Saudi Arabia with the line. And again, I think transition Saudi Arabia goes through is, in a way, this process of writing a new story, creating a new future, and doing that through a series of projects. But the projects are actually quite wide-ranging, and their ambition is to change the whole society and defining a new future for its people. So that's more, I think, it's more important than the buildings themselves. It's the outcome of the processes which they leave behind. It's really a shift in history, and understanding how they can use or utilize their own past, defining the craft-based tradition and cultures with a very future production on demand and kittle parts of the construction industry of today. And I think that's a learning one can take from that. That again, it's a very complex project going beyond just the initial design. On this slide, you actually see the beginning of the line being shaped in the background, with the first diggers and the piling ongoing. I think that's we can go to the next slide. This slide is from a process we did a long time ago in Kirkeni, a village in Delhi. I found it when I visited Delhi last time. I remember that we had been doing a project there, which was about how we can use the components of the past and redefining it as a part of the future. It's almost like a acupuncture, or it's just slightly shifting or rereading the components of something which is there. And so again, in that way, in that situation, it was working with the street and understanding of the crafts and all the people and all the layers which contributed to that street and what that street could be turned into, which would be for the better of those living along it and working it and having their livelihoods there. So then as architects, we would analyze the situation, and that was almost most of the work, but then understanding what would be those cornerstones in redefining a future for that street and its people, and how they could take part in a journey towards future which would create a better situation for them, but not shifting them away, but telling their story or giving them a narrative which would be relevant towards an audience of visitors or people coming from the outside. So it would be doing small adjustments to make it possible for them to cater to a new layer of users for local tourism or visitors or people looking for going there and buying crafts. But it was more making these pre-existing qualities accessible. So again, maybe the outcome of this process is not about built matter. It's about reshifting or retelling the story, or creating maybe a story of this specific street into something which is specific and evolves then into the future, outside or beyond our control, but steered by those who live there and work there. So it's working with the story of the place, basically. I think these are like very site-specific projects, actually, because one has to go in there and understand what's specific about it. So it's not about this global architecture or global reading of the world where everything is the same. It's quite the opposite. it mirrors how architecture is a conversation between the past, the present, and the future. But the output is not a building. It's just a continuation of the story that is there, which is there, but with a few added elements. So that is kind of how you can balance between the tradition and being true to the stories and the people and the narratives which are there, and adding it with innovation and a future maybe where crafts would be meeting the digital world, and that is also then tying the local traditions into a way of understanding how we would operate in the future with the digital production and so forth. So respecting the past and strengthen it with the tools of the future. We can go to the next slide. This is a project for it's a city, it's a master plan which tries to blend or combine stories of the past with a very specific grand gesture, but also pulling in the specific geography of the place where everything is centered around this specific points, but all of the mountains, the natural terrain, the islands, everything is tied together in a greater whole. And it is actually just all these layers, all these components are already there. And we, as architects, we went in there and tried to see how can we unite them and create that new story, the new bond, which gives a specific or clear path to the future. Before they were maybe floating elements without a clear inner tie. And I think that architecture is an art form, and it's only an art form when it goes beyond brick and mortar and their function. It needs to touch us as human beings on a deeper level, and blending everything from kind of the spiritual, technological, sociology, environmental issues, the history. Architecture is kind of a cultural barometer, and it is reflecting the society and our ambitions of where we're going with our values, and also and where we want to advance. So it has this opportunity to define this, and by working wider and being willing to maybe enter into rooms which we are not so familiar with, I think that strengthens the outcome and gives a better product which relates more specifically to the people who lives there, and how this place would be different from the other place. I think we can go to the next slide. You can put play. Do you manage to play this video? No? No. Okay, doesn't work. As you see, this is a pizza. And why do I have a pizza in this presentation? I do that because I think goes back to this idea that architecture doesn't need to result in buildings. It can lead to maybe a place or a client needs a song. This sounds very strange, but I think that if we confine ourselves just to working with bricks and mortar, I think that we lose some of the possible pipelines of our imprint on what's to come. And all these layers of the culture is a very important part of how we live our lives. I really enjoy cooking, so that's why I have this pizza oven. I enjoy inviting friends over and I bake for them. And sometimes maybe that product is more important than a building in a specific moment, in a specific time. So I think we should allow ourselves to understand how we can use our profession and use our tools or our knowledge to create ideas which is not necessarily just built, because the imprint or the impact can be just as strong if you find another expression than that built matter. History is always also lost. Culinary traditions are there, and they are tying us together as people. This is a very multidisciplinary approach, I believe, because it means trying to embrace how architects can find fields like technology or working with environmental issues or cultural traditions, and by integrating these disciplines in what we create a much more holistic and sustainable design for the specific place, and that can redefine the architect's impact on the society of the future, working wider. So yeah, we can go to the next slide. So it's a bit like, I think working in the future of architecture lies in this understanding that we are adaptable, and we do hold the keys to shaping the future. And if we embrace a wider range of tools and a wider range of approach to how we practice, I think our imprint will be much greater, and I think that we can reinstate ourselves as builders of society. We just need to try to understand again what are our tools and what are the products which we leave behind. So I think that's, I mean, we don't just build structures, we shape society with what we do, and we have always done that, but we have to understand that it's not just buildings which shape society, it's all these other layers, and I think it's wider, it's richer, and we can maneuver in that landscape, and by doing that we can promote sustainability and inclusivity and resilience for what to come. I think we can do the next slide. Yeah, so this is again an image from a curtain in the village. So just in closing, I think that's something I think which is a great opportunity for the architects in working in the multidisciplinary field is to embrace these challenges and also the opportunities which is in our occupation and in our profession. And then we can, by doing that, we can really, by working much broader and in a multidisciplinary approach, we can really push the boundaries of what we can contribute with and how we can make a big difference. And by talking to people on different levels, we can really we can be more committed, I believe, to excellence and innovation and being there to define and to set the future in a much in a way which is closer to how we could operate as architects in the past, when the world was simpler in a way, and also the power less distributed. And I think that is a good thing about the situation today, and where the individuals also has a say. But I think then we have to understand how to deal with communication towards them to make ourselves relevant in the context. So we together, not just as architects, but everyone together, we create